Stefan, can you put my slides up, please? Thank you. Yay. Right, we're going to make. I'll wait 1 minute for the online people, okay, and then I'll start. And we're going to this bit hopefully won't take very long before we get to the more interesting bits. So I'm going to fairly rattle through these, and Tom will do his bit similarly, I hope. A few seconds. Right, welcome everybody. It's now 6 p.m. and I want to open this this AGM for the eggs for 23-24. The last AGM was actually less than 12 months ago. We had it late last year in September. I am going to fairly rattle through this because we've got much more interesting stuff to come. So this PowerPoint pack is effectively my report. It will go on to the usual social media channels we have shortly in the next few days. So we'll give you a chance to ask any questions if you want to ask them at the end of this. But if you have any you think of later, then please get in touch and we'll endeavour to answer them after this event. So apologies for absence. I think the only one of significance is Scott O'Neill, who you will see a bit later is going to be the new vice chair. He's on holiday at the moment. The minutes of the last meeting were circulated online. I'm looking for Tom Hunt the other day. They are on Gistmail? Yeah. All right. They're uploaded online if you want to read them. I suppose we have to accept those, don't we? Yes. So who wants to propose acceptance of the previous minutes? Somebody put their hand up, please. Helen, thank you. Who wants to second that? I'm assuming you've all, yeah. Emma or Anna, I don't really mind. And have we got any objection to accepting those on the basis that you've all been and read them? Are you watching this online, by the way? Oh, okay. All right. So we are definitely quorate here, so we'll take those as accepted. But again, if you have any comments on them, and I think that's very unlikely, then get in touch after the event. So that allows me then to introduce Tom Pickard, our retiring treasurer, to do his little bit.
Introduce me once and once only, because Jacob will be.
Yeah, we'll sort that out.
We'll do that in a minute. Okay, the numbers don't look great for 2023. It's not that bad. So a lot of that number, the 17,000 deficit, is effectively me not chasing money that we are owed. So the account is in there. We're all green. It's payments for sponsorship, grant money, etc., that should be in the account but aren't. So it's really not that bad. We are trying to do this really short and sweet. So the positive news is that the only significant event in 2023 that did make a loss is the 23 conference, and we sort of learned our lessons with that. The positive news is that 2024 conference was much better and accounted for any deficit there. We don't try and profit from these events, we just try and break even to keep the group going. And that is exactly where we are right now. So it is positive news. And Jacob's summary next year will be more positive than this one, because there's an element of not looking in 1 year in isolation. That's not how our year works. So It is all good news, despite the big red number. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions? Good. So can we, sorry, standing away from the microphone. Have we got any questions? If not, can I get somebody to propose that we accept these numbers? Somebody put their hand up. Thank you. Alex, ex-treasurer, second that. And then if nobody's got any objections. Yeah, you're objecting or? No. Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Anna. Right, this is my bit now. So that's just what we are. We are constituted. So we have a constitution, that means, group of the JOLSOC. Those words underneath broadly summarize our terms of reference, which is all really about providing opportunities for education, in effect, increasing knowledge. One of the main things we do around that is we have evening meetings like this. We have field trips and conferences, which we'll come to. And that's just a list of the conference we've had since the last AGM last September, so over about 10 months. We have had and still have, I think, difficulties with getting good attendance here in Burlington House, and that's been the case really since COVID. And we've tried a few things, and it's kind of helped a bit, but it's not great. I would encourage people, if you're anywhere close, to come, because the social aspect of these evening meetings is fantastic, and you don't get that if you're online. Our online attendances have been okay. They could be better, but they've been okay. So I think we are meeting as best we can at the moment our objectives set out in terms of reference. The big thing, one of the big events we do is the Gloss Up, mostly in November, and I think it's been for quite a long time. It's been in the Royal Institution, because this room here at Burlington House isn't big enough. Last year, John Cripps gave us gave the medal presentation from Mud to Rock and back, and I'm delighted to see that John is here in the audience. So thank you once again for that, John. And the Gloss Up Award winner, the early career winner, was Luke on quantifying conceptual model, a case study in total geological history. And I'm also very pleased to say that Luke is here as well. And we follow that with a really good sort of buffet drinks reception here in Burlington House. And it would be very remiss of me not to repeat our sponsors for that, and there they are. So thank you very much once again. Next year's Gloss Up lecture, I think yes, the 21st of November, Royal Institution again I'm really looking forward to this. It's about Mark Lee, Landslide Risk Assessment, Radical Uncertainty and Engineering Geomorphology, which is a fantastic title. I saw his abstract for this yesterday, and we'll be publicising that very soon. And I'd encourage you to come. Mark is a fantastic speaker. He spoke at the Peter Fuchs conference year before last, really, really well. And one of the really cool things for me is that Mark is a geographer. And, you know, I've always considered the engineering group to be a broad church. We've had lots of civil engineers win the Glossop Medal, and we've had a few geomorphologists, and Mark is following in their footsteps. All very good. Field meetings. The last field meeting we had was, because of issues, COVID-related issues, actually, was meant to be in Kent and Chalk-based, but we couldn't actually find a hotel that had enough catering staff. So it kind of got postponed. And then right at the last minute, after a meeting here, actually, in the pub, Scott O'Neill suggested to Dave and I that maybe we should run it in Ironbridge. And we did that in November. It absolutely poured down, and everybody I've spoken to that went to it had a brilliant time. So thank you very much to Dave. Thank you very much to Scott and to Steph for making all of that. Scott and Steph are both local to Ironbridge. They made all this happen at very, very short notice. So thank you very much. Some of you may know, may not know that the engineering group and the QRA, the Quaternary Research Association engineering group, which I'm part of, have been working very closely together on a whole series of field trips, and I've only put one in here. Which was basically a one-day walk around central London, pointing at things and not seeing the ground. And it worked really, really well. So this is a conversation about terraces, about uplift, about quaternary feature, engineering hazard features, and so on. So I think we need to try and do more of that. So if anybody's got any ideas in your local town or city where you can point at the ground and tell an interesting story, it works. The conference, again, was once again in Cambridge at Christ's a few months ago in April, end of March. It was jointly badged with the JOLSOC's hydrogeology group. And that's because we linked the theme, or at least part of the theme, to groundwater, because sometime soon, later this year, there is an engineering group special publication coming out, a team led by Ian Duncan and Ursula Lawrence, the former chair here, both former chairs, in fact. And so we themed it around groundwater and also around case studies, just in general in engineering geology, so it wasn't all groundwater based. And although I say it myself, it was really good fun. And everybody, we got so much very positive feedback. And I was even getting very positive feedback about it last night when I bumped into two people, 2 or 3 months after the event. So if you've not been to Cambridge before, please come next year. I don't think you'll regret it. We, as you see in there, we also try to build in a cheap, very good value CPD session the first morning of the conference before it starts, and that went down extremely well as well. So again, thanks to all the speakers and their employers, and thanks to that list of sponsors. We did really well with the sponsorship there, which Tom just alluded to in his finance talk, and we think we've made a modest surplus out of that one, but it's not reflected in those numbers because that was only a few months ago. And thanks again to the people who organised that, and some of which are in this room. So Anna and Dave Giles, Dave Ingham, Saskia, who's not here today, and Luke again. I mean, it's a lot of work to put this together, and we seem to have got a formula, I think, that works well. One of the comments I got last night was actually, it's not too big a conference, so you can get to talk to everybody. People seem to like that. It's a very sociable event. So please come next year. We're also very active, and have been for a long while, in producing publications for the JOLSOC. So typically these are engineering group special publications that are very themed. The groundwater one I've just mentioned, that's due out later this year, I think. And then the two offshore ones, the first one there, offshore engineering geology and geomorphology and geohazards, that's coming out, we think, later this year, maybe early next. And there are two others ongoing, a weathering one, which is relatively young, it's only just started, and another offshore thing, nearshore engineering geology thing again. A lot of this is wind farm development driven, onshoring cables, foundations, and the issues with foundations for offshore turbines as well, and floating turbine anchor points. There's another little group led by Jim Griffiths, who's producing a special publication based on the 2023 conference, which was set up in memory of Peter Fuchs. And I think that the publication, it's not good, I suspect, given the way the publishing house work, is that will be a themed collection of papers rather than necessarily a book. But I'm not sure, that's Jim's dealing with that. But certainly that is on the way too. So thank you very much to all of the people involved in those working parties and in writing these things. They are nearly always, well, they are always fantastic documents, and it's all done with voluntary time. So we are cracking through this. This is good. Links with other organisations. We're going to hear a lot tonight about the IAEG, which is great. And we want, again, actually to thank particularly Helen, who's here. She's now Vice President for Europe in the IAEG, and the IAEG membership is kind of hosted within GSL. We've got nearly 400 members. They need more, we need more. It's remarkably good value. I think probably less than £30. Yeah, and it's a tick box. It's a tick box on your renewal form, and you get access to an absolutely fantastic journal that comes out through the IAEG for free for that £30. Good value. So please listen to what you hear later on. Be inspired to join, and if you're not already. The engineering group, on behalf of the JOLSOC, also represent ourselves on the BGA committee, on the ground forum, and also on the RoadJet panel, which is something that those things usually fall to the chair. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years. And as I've just mentioned, we are, some of us are very closely involved with the QRA and their engineering group. And that's resulted in a whole series of absolutely brilliant field trips. There's another one in October, which if you're interested in glacial till, it's in Holderness on the Yorkshire coast. Come along and you'll be taught things by absolute global experts on the glacial deposits. They are fantastic events. And then we're just starting a conversation with the BSG, the British Society of Geomorphology, who are, like the QRA, who are an affiliated group to the GeolSoc. So they're not like special interest group like EGGS, but there is a relationship, a formal relationship, which probably isn't as active, hasn't been as active as it should be, but we're going to try to do something about that over the course of the next few years. So they want somebody from EGGS to sit on their equivalent committee, and we're in the process of deciding who that is at the moment. Right, this is where we need an action from you again. The two people who have no, I'll go back a step. Last year when I did this, we came to the end of a year with a lot of churn in the for all sorts of perfectly good reasons, a lot of churn in the committee membership, which caused a bit of a hiccup in the organisation of some of the things we do. But thankfully this year it's settled down. So Tom is stepping down in a few minutes from being treasurer and being replaced by Jacob Bennett, who's also here. And Amber Pavey stepped away early this year. So we want to, in the course of this report and this meeting, to record our thanks to both of their hard work and all their efforts over the last few years. And then we wish to elect these people. They've been co-opted, which we're allowed to do since the last AGM. And we want to elect them formally to be a committee member. So I'm not going to go through them individually, but again, if somebody can propose that we elect these, Anna, and second, Dave, Tom, thank you. Does anybody have any objection to the election of these 5 individuals? Bearing in mind that one of them's in the room, 2 of them are in the room. So yeah. Nothing? Okay, so I think you can consider yourselves elected. Thank you very much. That last bit about thanks, I'll come back to that. I think I've said that about 4 times in this presentation. I'll do that at the end. We haven't, so the new chair, as in a few minutes, will be Anna, who will introduce herself in a moment. She's been the vice chair for the last couple of years. And thank you personally from me for all your efforts and enthusiasm. It's been good fun, and you're part of that. And Scott O'Neill, who has stood up and put his hand up to be the new ex-VC. So I'm really pleased to see Scott do that. He's a very enthusiastic individual. He'll do well. And lastly, a bit of, well, 2 slides here for a bit of a plug for what's coming up. So there is an absolutely fantastic sounding field trip coming up in mid-July. The spaces are available. So on the next page, online and in here, there's a QR code which will take you to the booking page. So when it comes up, if you're interested, screenshot, take a photo, whatever. This is a play. So this is based in Buxton, but it's going to do the MAM tour, all those sort of classic locations. And these are locations that the IAEG went to quite a few years ago, which was written up in 2006 and written up in QJ or in the bulletin. So whatever the paper, you take that paper and you can walk around, and I've done this, you can walk around the locations and it's still absolutely fantastic day out. The engineering group have been there before, so this promises to be really good. I'm not sure whether there's any trip underground like there was at Ironbridge in a mine, but you never know. They may well be going into Speedwell or something, Cavan. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go. I'm busy elsewhere. We've got the Glossop, as I've mentioned, coming up in November, the Royal Institution. Next year's conference will be held in Cambridge again because it's remarkably good value and good fun. But the themes are not formally announced, but they're almost certainly to be at least partly offshore based on the back of those 2 special publications I mentioned. The 2025, as I get 2 opportunities in the next bullet, 2025 field trip will be based in Portland Heights. And it's basically is in memory of Dennis Brunson, and we've already done this in the committee meeting, we'd just like to mark Dennis's passing. It's such an important figure for this group. And so we're going to hold this. I think there's plans for a talk, a memorial talk for on Dennis's themes as well. But this field trip is being run by, it's going to be led by Mark Lee and Roger Moore. So we've got two absolute top guys in this field doing this. I think it's quite smart in the sense that there's 2 days of training if people want it up front, and then a more traditional 2 days of field trip over the weekend. So keep an eye out for that. I think the planning's well underway for that one. I think there are dates, but I forgot to put them in here. So apologies for that. You'll see stuff around that. As I've already mentioned, there's this QRA Till trip, I think on the 24th of October for the weekend then on the Yorkshire coast. Some landslides, some quaternary science, that will be good. I'm certainly going to that one. And you may have seen, I can't say too much about this, you may have seen on the JOLSOC website banners and things promoting a Peter Fuchs Engineering Geology Conference. The background to that is that Peter left some money to support I think a biennial, every 2 years, engineering geology focused conference. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a mix-up with the dates. So the dates you see on the website at the moment are going to change very soon because they unfortunately clash with the IAEG Congress in Dubrovnik. So that's being sorted, but it's not being announced. So that will come sometime in 2025, the first one of those. And there's also an Energy Group conference, which is kind of partly co-badged with EGGS on offshore ground models, which is on the 20th and 21st of November. So we've got lots and lots of things coming up that are quite cool. Right, so this is where you take your picture screen if you're interested. Oh, good, I'm glad to see some people are in the room. If you're online, print screen. And that will take you to a Bilito booking site. And the last slide for me, 20 past. Are we done? Photos? Yeah, cool. And the last slide for me is a very similar slide to what I finished with last year. You know, this group, which you can see has been very active, really only survives by the enthusiasm of the volunteers on the committee and the people that help the committee. And we're always looking for keen people. At the moment, the committee is notionally constitutionally full, but that doesn't mean to say we can't fit people in helping out. So if you're interested and not involved, then please get in touch. And we'll see what we can do. And lastly, really, I'm standing down now in a few seconds, and Anna takes over. So I would want to personally say thank you to all the committee members over the last 2 years, in fact, and the two before that when I was VC, and in particular Dave, who lots of all the field trip stuff we do wouldn't happen without Dave Giles. He's been doing this forever. He's a brilliant guy. So I know you're listening, Dave. Thank you very much. I'll buy you a beer in the pub later. So I think the only thing left then is if nobody in here is logged in, then we can't really do online questions. But if anybody's got any questions in the audience, then shout them out now. And if you've got questions online, then just get in touch. Engineering group, and what's the email address? enggroupjolsoc@gmail.com, or if you know my email address, just send me an email. So any questions in the room? Great. You know the score, don't you? So the next thing to do, I think, is just to very briefly get Anna to come up here and say, hi, I'm Anna, so you know what she looks like. And then my committee colleague, Michael, here will introduce the event part of the evening. So thank you all very much.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all here. And we've got a nice, good turnout in the room, which is great. So, and hopefully some people online. So, John, thank you. It's been great working with you over the last couple of years. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to going forward with the committee that John's built. It's a young committee full of enthusiasm. So, and John's made really good links with all the other special interest groups. Taken us forward with the annual Cambridge conference, hosted loads of amazing events and led with enthusiasm. So that's really great. Just to say hello from me, I graduated from Mike de Freitas's MSc in 2001, so quite some time ago. I'm sure quite a few of you have been through that course as well, so you know how great it was. And I've been obviously working in engineering geology ever since, with mostly based in London, a short stint in Hong Kong. So hoping to reach out to my Hong Kong colleagues, and we're going to build some links there. More recently, I've been working in natural hazard and risk, a lot of projects based in Africa, in the African sub-Saharan part of Africa. So hopefully a bit more on sort of global stuff to come as well. Michael, are you going to introduce next? So really looking forward to hearing from Dr. Helen Reeves, and I'll let Michael introduce. He's just finishing up. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Anna. Yeah, I'm Michael. I've been the convener for tonight's evening, or co-convener really, with Helen, which I'll introduce in a moment. And I'm on the events subcommittee of the engineering group. Just run through a quick introduction for the evening, how it's going to play out. And then I'll hand over to Helen to give a quick introduction to the IAEG. So we've got 3 or 4 speakers this evening. First up will be Jim Griffiths. Each sort of session will be around 15-20 minutes long. Second speaker to be Vassilios Marinos, the current president of the IAEG. And then Helen and Mark will cap us out at the end. If I can ask for questions to be held toward the end, anyone online, please feel free to chuck them in the chat, and we'll keep a track of them and come to a Q&A session at the end. Helen, do you want to quickly run through?
Yep. Evening, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody here. We've got a number of celebrations this year, but in particular, this event is to celebrate the 60th year of the International Association for Engineering, Geology and the Environment. We've got a little look into the past, the present and the future through the talks, and hope you'll get a flavour of what we've been doing over the years and doing at the moment, and hope to test and challenge some of the thoughts for the future. The IAEG has been working hard to move forward. We've got a lot of activities and initiatives. Have you heard the Dubrovnik conference coming up soon in October? So would really like people to get engaged, involved. As John mentioned, join the IAEG. There's a lot you can gain from it and see. And hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit of that tonight from these talks. We hope everybody can join in with some of the discussion at the end, and hopefully challenge us with some of the points that we're going to make as well. So please do that, and we look forward to hearing from those questions at the end. Thanks very much. Michael.
Thanks, Helen. Could we get the first set of slides brought up on screen in the room? I know they're being shared online, but while I introduce Jim. So Jim Griffiths is our next speaker. He was the chair of the organising committee for the 2006 IAEG Congress in Nottingham. Following his PhD at King's College in London, Jim worked in the industry as an engineering geologist between 1979 and 1993. And following this industry career, he became an academic at the University of Plymouth, where he retired from which he retired in 2015 as Dean of the Research and Enterprise. He's a prolific author, publishing 90 papers and 9 books, and has been a member of 5 engineering group and 2 IAEG working parties. He's worked in over 20 countries and appeared as an expert witness in legal proceedings in the UK, California, Paris, and Papua New Guinea. This evening, Jim's here to present a summary of the IAEG activities in the UK and further afield that have helped influence and shape our profession over the last 20 to 30 years. Jim, I'll hand over to you. We are all good in the room.
And you can hear me all right, can you?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks to John for his talk, and Michael and Helen there for the introduction. I will also offer my congratulations to Anna for becoming chair of of the engineering group. So a rich heritage there for you to follow, Anna, and it's brilliant to hear. Okay, the great geotechnical engineer Carl Tasagi described engineering geology as a strangely elusive subject. This was during the early post-war years. Nevertheless, in 1948, when Geotechnique, the journal, was first published, he said, "Geotechnique is intended to become a clearinghouse for significant information in the fields of soil mechanics and engineering geology. Both fields are so interdependent that it would be an idle question to ask which one is more important." Now, although the first book on engineering geology was published in London in 1880, the subject did not become really recognised in the mainstream in the UK until the 1950s and 60s. And part of that was the creation of the engineering group of the Geological Society in 1964. In Europe, there was also the slow development of the discipline, with a notable exception of Professor Zaruba in Czechoslovakia and a few other luminaries like Arnold and Menkel. The situation in the USA was better thanks to the work of people like Otis Crosby and Charles Berkey, who in the early 20th century were doing a lot of work in applied geology. Nevertheless, there was a lack of any international links and little cooperation beyond national borders. And this was identified at the 22nd International Geological Congress in New Delhi in 1964. As a direct consequence of discussions at this Congress, the IAG was established, with, quite rightly, I think, Professor Zaruba becoming the first president. The first actual Congress of the IAG took place in Paris in 1970. This Congress recognized that there were major issues surrounding the teaching and training of engineering geologists. Therefore, one of its first acts was to establish a commission dealing with this issue. This concern of teaching and training is a theme that continues to the present day, as those of you who have heard about the recent suspension of the MSc at Cardiff University will recognise. But taking Tasagi's comment about engineering geology being a strangely elusive subject, the 1992 General Assembly of the IAG in Kyoto came up with this sort of definition, which I think is pretty comprehensive. Let's read the top of it. It says, engineering geology is a science devoted to the investigation, study, and solution of engineering and environmental problems, which may arise as a result of the interaction between geology and the works and activities of humans, as well as to the prediction of and the development of measures for prevention or remediation of geological hazards. The definition goes on then to explain what engineering geology embraces. Now, this may not be a sort of a pithy or succinct statement, but I think really does describe the role of engineering geology and engineering geologists. Taking this definition in the volume by Delgado et al., another former president, on the 50 years of the IAEG, this is a figure developed from the work of Nick Rengers and Helmut Bock. This demonstrates that engineering geology is not a simplified version of geology, but a subject that draws upon all aspects of the discipline, as well as interfacing with soil mechanics, rock mechanics, and engineering. For me, I always thought this was best summarized by Alan Hathaway from the USA in his 2002 paper in the AEG Congress entitled Site Characterization, Raison d'etre of Engineering Geology. He said, engineering geology meets the most difficult challenges of the earth sciences. It is our duty to characterize the places where society carries on activities essential to its infrastructure, macrostructure, and efforts to safeguard its welfare and safety. This takes us on to the role of the IAEG has played in leading the development and recognition of engineering geology as a subject. More than 50 countries have engineering geologists who are members of the IAEG. The membership links are through the country's own geological societies. In the UK, our affiliation to IAEG is through the Geological Society and the Engineering Group, which, as you heard, Dr. Helen Reeves as the Regional Vice President. And whenever I visit a new country on a project, it was always through the IAG Vice Presidents I used to seek out my contacts. However, I want to highlight just a couple of publications by groups who are affiliated to or have links with the IAG. Top right is the Geological Society of America's Centennial volume on the first 100 years of engineering geology. It is worth noting that this was published over 30 years ago. The USA became the 40th national group of the IAEG at the 26th International Geological Congress in 1980. I would add that Canada became affiliated in 1974. However, back to the Centennial volume, this contains sections on history and professional development of engineering geology, geological processes and engineering works, construction materials and the environments of engineering works, geological investigations for engineering works, and finally, failures, errors of judgment, litigation, and the geologist's responsibility. This last section is almost unique in the engineering geological literature, as the threat of litigation has virtually destroyed the chance of publishing any papers on these topics. The volume top center was published by the Italian affiliated group of the IAEG, namely AIGA. If you can get a copy of this volume, this contains some of John Hutchinson's most influential papers. Top left is a report by the American Geoscience Institute that identifies the applied components of geoscience in its broadest sense. Now, these are just a few of the multitude of publications produced by affiliates of IAEG and often supported and sponsored by IAEG. But let's move on to IAEG itself. Delgado et al. Described the first 50 years of the IAEG, and in this they identify the four main services the IAEG provides with respect to publications. There is the newsletter. Now, up until about 2007, this was hard copy and usually issued twice a year. Since 2007, distribution become monthly and electronic. And thanks go in particular to another former IAEG president, Scott Burns from the USA, who has transformed the newsletter into an eagerly awaited document to enter our inbox. The other major sort of services in publications are the IAEG commissions, the bulletin, and the many conferences, but notably the Congress, which is held every 4 years. Looking first at the commissions, although the IAEG website lists some 34 commissions, not all are active at the moment. A commission is established by the IAEG to provide state-of-the-art reports, compilation of worldwide experience, with the main target being to provide guidelines and recommendations on a host of engineering geological topics. An important role of the Commission is to provide international cooperation amongst geologists and engineers in the geotechnical field and in related environmental topics. Now, this list here is only a few of the commissions. For me, it's fitting that the first commission was on engineering geological mapping, and had Milan Matula as the first chair with Bill Dearman as editor. This commission's work is ongoing, and at one time Martin Coleshaw was the editor. I regard this as one of the most successful of all the IAEG commissions, alongside the next one, C2, on landslides. This has been chaired by David Varnes, John Hutchinson, and David Cruden, and it's difficult to identify a stronger collection of experts in landslide studies than those three. C4, which I say was established at the first IAEG Congress in 1970, was led by Bill Dearman and Ricardo Oliveira. This reported in 1978 with a clear agreement that an engineering geologist should have a good basic geological background, a good background in mathematics and physics, including mechanics, a good understanding of soil mechanics and rock mechanics, a good knowledge of engineering geology, including site investigation methods, testing and treatment of the ground, and the methodologies for the study of engineering works. Moving on to two other commissions, in 2006, the incoming president of the IAEG, Fred Baines, asked me to pull together a report on landscape evolution and engineering geology, and this became Commission 22. The aim of this report was to incorporate a geomorphological understanding of landscape evolution into engineering geological practice. This concept arose from the recognition that landscapes are not static entities during the design life of an engineering structure, and that anticipating the changes that will occur should be regarded as a fundamental component of the ground model developed for a construction project. This leads nicely on to Commission 25, the Engineering Geological Models, that has been led by Fred Baines and Steve Parry. Developed from an original paper published in the IAEG Bulletin in, I think it's 2014, this report is available for download from the IAEG website and was completed in December 22. In this, they describe the engineering geological model as a comprehensive knowledge framework that supports the interpretation and assessment of the engineering geological conditions and allows the interaction of these conditions with the proposed project to be evaluated. This will ensure appropriate engineering decisions can be made throughout the life cycle of the project, from inception to decommissioning. And within this definition, various forms of specific model are identified as shown in the diagram, namely conceptual, observational, geological, geotechnical, ground, digital, and analytical. Moving now on to the bulletin itself, this was first published in 1970. Interestingly, originally the IAEG wanted to adopt the pre-existing journal from Elsevier of Engineering Geology as its official journal. However, not surprisingly, the offer was too expensive, so the bulletin was born. Until the 21st century, the bulletin was bilingual, English and French, in recognition of the Society's origins. For the period 1970 to 1997, there were only 2 issues per year, but from then on, it's become 4 issues. The engineering group has had 2 illustrious editors of the bulletin, but it's Brian Hawkins and Martin Coleshaw. Since it was first issued, over 2,500 papers have been published. The word cloud on the right is from an analysis of the papers 1998 to 2013. It is apparent that papers on landslides have featured extensively in the journal, although soil and rock properties for engineering projects are clearly a major source of material. I had a quick look at my collection, which is comprehensive, as you might expect, and there are 4 papers I've just highlighted here. Bottom right, there's John Hutchison's superb landslide paper from 1977, where he first proposed the neutral line concept for use in stabilization measures. Bottom left is the fascinating paper by Isles and Dearman that presents a glacial terrain map for Britain for use in engineering practice. This work underpinned the studies for the UK's Official Engineering Geology map at 1 to 1 million scale, produced by the BGS in 2011. The top 2 papers demonstrate the progress in landslide hazard and risk assessment. Van Vesten, Van Asch, and Surters look at the problems of zonation, whereas Lynn and Land more recently have moved on to probabilistic modelling for rockfalls. Now, the IAEG International Congresses are held every 4 years, although there are many other symposia and conferences supported by the IAEG. But the 4 yearly Congress is the flagship meeting, and just want to highlight 2 of those. As already been said, in 2006, we held the 10th International Congress in Nottingham. This was organised through the Geological Society, with the engineering group membership committee members taking on the main responsibility for putting together the scientific programme. In this case, the main output was an engineering geology special publication edited by Martin Coleshaw, Helen Reeves, Ian Jefferson, and Tim Speake. Nearly 450 papers were submitted to this conference, and these were included in the CD accompaniment to the EGSP. There are 12 themes at the conference under the general heading of Engineering Geology for Tomorrow's Cities. In the synopsis of the volume, Martin Coleshaw noted that in engineering geology, working standards originally developed nationally were becoming international. Risk assessment, rather than just assessment of hazards, was driving decision-making. Geoenvironmental change, whether climatically or anthropologically driven, was becoming better understood. Greater use was being made of underground space. There was the relentless advance of information technology, and this was providing new opportunities for engineering geologists to interpret and visualize the subsurface. Then there's the IAEG Congress in Auckland. This was convened by the Regional Vice President, Anne Williams. The Congress resulted in 2 volumes, the main book of 311 pages, and extended abstracts for another 648 pages. The Congress was entitled Geologically Active, and unfortunately, the day we arrived, there was the first of a series of devastating earthquakes affecting the Christchurch area of South Island. Over the period September 2010 to February 2011, there were 185 deaths caused by earthquakes in this area. The themes for the Congress were geohazards, managing risks, advances in engineering geology, applied engineering geology, evolving engineering geology, and each had a keynote by a very eminent geologist as shown. There have now been over 14 congresses, and each have resulted in a comprehensive outputs. All remain a vital source of reference, case studies, and experience. So to conclude, I recognise I'm in the twilight of my career, and I have a few conclusions I want to share. And given it's over 50 years since I first graduated, it shows you how long I've been around. So geology is a global profession. If you only look at case studies from the UK, you'll only ever have a parochial view of the subject. It is axiomatic that developing professional networks is central to your career progression. For me, my UK network has emerged mainly through the engineering group. However, having worked extensively overseas, I can say that the IAEG provided me with my contacts in a host of countries. I have published with Alan Hathaway, Doug Stead, Fred Baines, and Mark Eggers. I worked on EU research projects, that's when we still could, of course, with Jody Coromines and Franco Mantovani. And it was thanks to Anne Williams and Mark Eggers they undertook a 1 month long lecture tour of the major cities in Australia and New Zealand. Alan Hathaway once wrote, as engineering geologists, he said, we become real when we leave the office or laboratory and enter the field. Engineering geology is a field science. I know that in my experience, when engineering geologists get together, nobody talks about what a great time they had in the office. It is always about our time on site. Long may it continue, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jim. And as a quick reminder, if you have any questions for Jim, to drop them in the chat or keep them for the end of the presentation. And so it really struck me out of that little presentation just how much the IAG has contributed to our day-to-day working, the number of papers and presentations and publications that really form a key part of our work. So it's great we're having this showcase tonight. The next speaker I'm handing over to is Vassilios Marinos, who is the current president of the IAEG. He's an assistant professor of engineering geology and rock mechanics at the National Technical University of Athens. He's published over 100 papers in journals, books, and international conferences, and his key research interests in the field of geotechnical classification, behavior of weak and complex rock masses and tunneling, landslide hazard and risk analysis, natural gas pipelines, construction of geotechnical database for tunnels and urban environments, rock stability, and evaluation and analysis of ground movement in mines. Alongside his role with the IAEG, he's been a member of editorial boards in scientific journals, including the Bulletin of Engineering Geology and the Environment, the Journal of Geotechnical and Geological Engineering, and a reviewer for several journals, including Rock Mechanics and Rock Engineering, Journal of Rock Mechanics and Mining, Engineering Geology, Journal of Geotechnical and Geological Engineering, and Tunneling and Underground Space Technology. With that, I shall hand over to Professor Marinos.
Thank you very much, Michael, and Helen, for the introduction and the organization, and for inviting me in this very important event to celebrate the 60 years of IAEG. First of all, before starting my presentation, I would like to congratulate John for his great job in the engineering group. Thank you very much, and wish good luck to Anna. Anna, you said that you finished in 2001. If it is true, we were together in that course at that time, because we started in 2000, we ended 2001. It's a pity so many years passed. If you started 2001, then you were 1 year later than me. So I'm very sorry not being there with you all. But thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present the IAEG, what we are doing. We are working in the International Association with many brilliant people currently in our board. And I would like to thank and give my greetings to Jim for his wonderful presentation, and seeing his background. He would not avoid to put Santorini behind a spectacular island, volcanic island of Greece. So let's get start to my presentation. So our definition, of course, engineering geology, I'm not going to pass through that, but when I start speaking about engineering geology worldwide and what IAEG is doing, I have to start with that from our status and bylaws and our definition in order to see what we are describing, or what we are the meaning of when we are saying engineering geology. In some other parts of the world, it's called geological engineering. In some other parts of the world, an engineering geologist, mostly geotechnical engineering, rather than engineering geology, as we mostly in Europe, we are mostly related to geology background. So this is a very rough timeline I have prepared for these 60 years of celebration. We will transform this timeline into a video You're gonna see it in a few months. It is almost ready. You're gonna see it in our festivities in Dubrovnik in October. But this is roughly a timeline with some milestones in IAEG. And let's see some pictures from the old times. So I know that you have already celebrated these 60 years because engineering group, I think, started in 1963, if I'm not wrong. So you celebrated these 60 years last year. But still, this year, 60 years of celebration is very important, international for our profession and how we can ensure and promote it further. So these are some photos from the past. And this is from the Nottingham conference in 2006, not 96. It's wrong there. So these are the past presidents at that time. And some figures, you saw the one Jim saw, but just to scroll it a little bit, to see how all this was changing through all these decades and years, and how we were struggling. We were trying to settle, to configure, trying to establish all our objects and subjects of engineering geology within this geoengineering environment and society. So this is, let's say, the latest between the ISSMGE and ISRM after our FedEx union. So this could be, let's say, the latest, most updated figure explaining the role of engineering geology within the broader field of geoengineering. So this is how we pretty much started in 60 years ago by some countries in late 64 in December in India. And then you see almost 10 years ago, the national groups were 57, and now we are 70, where we hope that in Dubrovnik we will add some more national groups. Of course, some of them are far more active than others, but still, we need all these national groups, and we need to have this collaboration at international level, apart from our national and regional presence. Here in this slide, you will see our vice presidents and Helen and Janusz from Europe and all the others, and you see how our members are split. Nowadays, we have reached up to 5,000 members, and you see that Europe has the majority of these, and the national groups also are almost half of our national groups are coming from Europe. So it is very, very important. And this is how the membership have changed through times. So good records were existing from the late previous century. So you can see that we have a huge drop down in somewhere 2005, and we have some deviations, but you see that we are growing again, and the challenge right now, it's totally different from what used to be, because it was the only way that you could, let's say, network through the conferences and through the international association. So now the map and how we communicate have totally changed. And now we see how we can persuade, let's say, our colleagues and our young colleagues to join us and help us into establishing. Still, it is always a big task of how we can still ensuring and endorsing our profession. So this is our vision, and in IAEG, our mission in IAEG. You can have a look. I have put some more slides here because I know that this meeting is being recorded, so it will be good for some people to see it in their own time. So I'm very sorry. Apologies for shifting some of them pretty fast, but I don't want to tire you, and I want to stay in some other slides. So these are our objectives right now in our strategic plan. This is a nice photo from Santorini Island. This is a red beach, an old red scoria, an old volcano. So this is cut in half, a very dangerous, forbidden to swim beach right now. So you see our objectives there, how we have listed them, and you'll see what we're trying to do in order to achieve them. This is who we are right now. These people, our latest meeting in Athens last May, and in 2023 in Paris. But we had a workshop for 2 days, a very exhausting meeting in order to see all the ways how we can achieve our strategic plan. And this is a photo from the last big conference in Chengdu in China. And let's move now to what we're trying to achieve: networking, professional development, technical leadership, promotion, and resources in IAEG. So networking, indeed, this is a main role of an international association, trying to bring seniors with young professionals in order to build an effective networking between experienced professionals and in regional, international levels towards education and training, scientific advancement, and professional development. You're going to see some things through afterwards. We have created some new social media. We know that our young engineering geologists are working and are following all these. So we're trying and they are working pretty well. We are very enthusiastic about that. So please follow that. We have established 2 groups. They are right now ex officio members in the board. So we have a group for women in engineering geology, and we have a group for young engineering geology in the committee. We have voted in Chengdu a vice president position for young engineering geology. So we give them voice, we give them vote, we give them a budget. And this is what we are intending to do also for women in engineering geology. So the young group are very active. This is a very active fraction of I would say, that boost us and give us ideas, gives us fresh ideas, and they are pressure us into doing things. Of course, they are very enthusiastic, but they really work with us in order to get things done and represent us in very different activities. And you see some photos for their sessions, scientific, but also social in different parts. You see here the benefits, the funding and sponsorship program, and how they represent IAEG, and how they're trying to recruit, let's say, the young people through this channel. But eventually, this is IAEG. So it is like a way into trying to reach them. So this is a very fresh group in IAEG, the Women in Engineering Geology group, run by Anne Williams from New Zealand, past vice president of IAEG. And you see also Helen there that has done a fantastic job with Jean Hutchison in order to establish that group. And we are very enthusiastic in also doing very different, their own meetings and sessions, in all parallel sessions within our conferences and other activities. We have established an equity, diversity, and inclusion policy. We are the first in this engineering society in Fendix that does that. So we have drafted a first report in Chengdu, and we're going to have an update in Dubrovnik, and this is very important in order to ensure that gender equality, racial diversity, but also issues like young members, how they can work within our association freely. Our next IAEG conference will be in 2026. It comes again back in Europe. Actually, I was, as a president, I was very troubled by losing the IAEG logo in Europe for many, many years after Torino in 2014 and after COVID time. So now it was time again to come back in Europe. So these dates are final. So you can book them, you can put them in your diary. And we welcome you all in Netherlands in 2 years' time. And the last regional conference was held in Kuala Lumpur in last February. And you see some videos from this meeting. But what probably is more important to you is the next European regional conference. The previous one was in Athens, but it was during COVID time, so we didn't have a lot of representation from Europe. So now it's a time. Dubrovnik has direct flights from UK. This is our official annual event, and this is where we're going to celebrate the 60 years, of course, together with other regional conferences like La Serena in Chile, in Latin America in November, and in next year in 2025 in Namibia. This is always also a final call. This will run in September in 2025 in a very nice hotel in Namibia, and the next regional conference 2025 in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So there is a lot of regional activity. Asia has every year a regional conference. Europe every 2 or 3 years, depending of where is a World Congress. Of course, North America has every year. Latin America, it's between 2 and 3 years. So depending of how active these regions are. And you see all this conference and Congress schedule here in this slide. So start of October, the first week of October, hopefully we'll meet in person in Dubrovnik in a fantastic venue. We went with Helen a couple of months ago, and really will be a fantastic event. So we're really looking forward for a professional development, and we try to establish webinars through the bulletin, through the International Summer School, through our conference, through our field trips, workshops, training courses, and technical presentations. We have a lot of material in our website. Here you see next Monday, we will have our official annual IAEG Summer School. It is only dedicated to PhD students right now. We will start probably a second one in Himalayas, targeted also for MSc students, but we really need to secure a very high standard summer school. So we have established a scientific committee in order to see in other parts of the world that wants to prepare this kind of summer school to secure this very good level of knowledge that will be shared. And you see the title of this summer school. And here I would like to thank the Italian National Group for organizing that. Technical leadership, of course. Here I have to say that Jim said that the history of IAEG, that the main target for our community at that time was to put numbers in geology, to try to put the engineering courses in engineering geological to the geologist background. So that was a challenge at that time. And we have made tremendous achievements till now. And the technology inside investigation, also in laboratory, have assisted us in remote sensing significantly. But now what I see, and my personal challenge as a president, is not to deviate from our real, let's say, strength and competence, which is our geology background, and how the geological processes and the engineering geological models and mechanisms are described well. Of course, at the end, they should be translated in engineering way in numbers, but it should be based in a sound geological engineering geological models, because right now all our students are mostly fascinated in order to do a very nice colors job through you know, AI or through GIS or other models, and prepare very fast, wonderful schemes, but they don't give a lot of time to the field. So this is something that we have to secure through our International Association for Engineering, Geology and the Environment. And we have our commissions. Yes, as Jim said, not all of them are active. Actually, the half of them are pretty active. So we're trying to provide to advocate to give some motivation to them, and how we can publish, how they can we can strengthen them, how we can reborn some of them, some very important ones like education and training, for example. So these are some of our active or very important ones. And together with other geoengineering societies like ISRM, ISSMGE, and Geotextiles, we have, of course, our joint technical commissions. So we're trying to be also, we lead the JTC3 now, education and training, under Professor Jean Hutchinson from Canada. So we're very happy about that. Promotion, of course, we have to promote geoscience and engineering geology as we do it through a lot of activities and ways I'm going to show you. But also we have new fields in engineering geology, geohazard, environmental, and climate change topics. So we need to put that under our umbrella and collaborate with other geoengineering professions. So we promote through the FedEx, through our technical commissions, through, of course, awards, prizes, forums, supporting university education of geoscientists, and development of standards and guidelines. And we have created a new website. We are doing online surveys. We're trying to do strategies, how I became a member of IAEG. So we are preparing this kind of promotion. We have our new connector, we have our newsletter. Here you see a slide of why become a member of IAEG. So we need to have a clear answer about that, and how we can support career development, how we can educate and train through lectures, workshops, webinars, and how we can connect through IAEG. So we have an online survey running right now. Our newsletter, 4 issues per year, run by our secretary, Fachuan Wu. A new connector every week, run by Scott Burns, past president of IAEG from North America. We're pretty proud, we're very proud for our bulletin, now reached a 4.2 in impact factor. But again, my concern as a president is to secure our engineering geological ID behind this, because this is our official journal. Also retain the engineering geology, the international character of our journal and our papers within, which is very, very difficult. So we really need to give our appreciation to the past editors-in-chief, Brian Hawkins, Martin Kulsau, and Resato Lusai for their tremendous job for giving to Arin Dambashu and Luis. We have our awards, many awards, prestigious awards. Right now, we have selected the 2024 award nominees, so you will see that in the social media. We have new awards and establishments for national groups, for Outstanding Commission Award, an IAEG Award for Best Reviewer, etc. And here you see all our synergy with other geoengineering societies and meetings, as we said, and my planned synergy with other geoengineering societies of European Federation of Geologists, the ICL and the UNESCO Global Geoparks, and other also communications are being run right now in order to see how we can work together with other objects, subjects, and specialties in geoengineering society. So resources are plenty right now. You can find a lot of material in the website. Right now, we have a huge digital library in IAEG, our bulletin, YAEG webinars, connector, commissions, courses, the national groups. And right now we have made, this is something new. So right now you can register online through a platform that it is run in Europe. Through the law run in Europe. So all the personal information are protected by this law. And this right now is very important to us in order to secure our private information, in order also to give very well networking between our society. So ending my presentation right now, we have launched a new IAEG logo for our anniversary. You have seen that. Also a new logo. It's not a radical, dramatical change, but still something more modern, more clear. We have created a celebration video. We have gotten a lot of material from past presidents, past officers. We will upload all these in the website, and we are creating a fantastic promotional video. Also promotional IAEG corporate video, not only 60 years. We have prepared a special issue in the bulletin, Advances in Challenging and Engineering Geology, celebrating 60 years of IAEG. This is open in spring year, so you can publish, you can put a paper there. This is not through invitation only, it's an open call. And these festivities and celebration will climax in the annual IAEG events in Dubrovnik, 10th of October, 2024. So we're looking forward in a world where innovation shapes the future, where ideas converge. A teaser for you. There exists a global community committed to advancing the frontiers of engineering geology. Welcome to IAEG 60th. The pinnacle event of innovation and exploration in engineering geology. For 6 decades, the International Association for Engineering Geology has been at the forefront of driving progress in our field. Join us as we celebrate our Diamond Jubilee. IAEG 60 promises to inspire, educate, and empower. So this was a teaser for our video that's coming up in the next period. So I would like to thank you all for inviting me and happy 60-year anniversary to IAEG. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vassilios. And also an extra thanks to you for joining from Athens. I realize it's quite late now, so yeah, a little extra thanks on behalf of the Geological Society for joining us and giving that presentation. Certainly lots of events to look forward to, not too far away from the UK for us here. I'd like to introduce now the final 2 speakers for the evening, which will be Helen and Mark. They'll be joining us in the room. So Helen is both a member of or a vice president of the IAEG for Europe, and also a member of the Geological Society committee here in the UK. Helen is internationally leading and renowned chartered engineering geologist, specializing in geological and geohazard characterization, assessment, and communication. She's over 20 years of postgrad experience in engineering geology and geohazard research, with over 30 peer-reviewed publications, policy review documents, reports, and industry commission reports covering a range of topics from geological and geohazard characterization and assessments. And Helen's working for Jacobs as a director and head of discipline for geoscience and engineering geology for Europe. Mark is also affiliated with the Geological Society, being the current chair of the Hydrogeological Group. He's 20 years experience in innovative solutions on complex industrial and engineering sites. Is actively involved in the developing of alternate routes into industry to improve diversity into geoscience and increase resilience in future talent pipeline. Mark and Helen are here this evening to present a holistic look at the challenges facing the engineering geology and geoscience more widely, what's shaping our profession, and how we will move forward in light of current challenges in the profession. Helen and Mark.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you also for Jim's introduction and history of the past of the IAEG, for Vassilios joining us at the late hour in Athens to give us our current view. And Mark and I are just going to tease you with a few ideas for the future. Opportunities and challenges, potentially. And they're there really to stimulate ideas and actions, hopefully. So one thing I just want to say, there are a number of anniversaries that we've had. You've heard about the IAEG 60th. The Hydro Group of the Geological Society is also celebrating 50 years today. So we thought it'd be nice to actually also bring two areas of the Geological Society together at the same time to have that three societies to celebration. And of course, we're all moving forward to our 75th anniversaries, hopefully, and the success of that in the future. And that's really what I want to touch on today. The talk we're going to give this evening is really just to add a little bit of reflection on engineering geological profession today, identify some of the opportunities for engineering geologists to contribute, particularly around the subsurface in cities and infrastructure projects, a few concluding thoughts, and then the future opportunities and challenges we have in the engineering, geological, and ground engineering professions. So you're going to have me for 10, 15 minutes to give a little bit about my perspective of the future, and then I'm going to pass over to Mark. Mark and I quite often are stimulating, particularly at the moment within Jacobs, around some of the challenges we see facing our profession in ground engineering collectively, particularly in practice. At the moment, it's a really exciting time. I think within our profession, there's lots of exciting agendas, opportunities, and challenges to address. Some of them more focused on our day-to-day works on projects. Some of them focused around the technologies we have to now work with. Some of the benefits and challenges we have around that, of course. And I'll touch on a little bit around that, particularly around communication towards the end. The other thing we have now that we've never had before is a number of mandates at an international level that give us a firm centering on what we do and what we deliver to society and the benefit we deliver to society. The UN development frameworks really give us that. Each one of those development frameworks relates to the interaction of the environmental process with human activities and behaviours. As we've heard about some of the definitions of our profession from both Jim and Vassilios, that is the foundation of where we work in. That is our everyday challenge, our day-to-day. And for those not as familiar with these, just to give a few highlights, you can see that when you start looking at each one of these frameworks in more detail. The Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction is very obvious to us, working with geohazards, working with assessing problems of how geological environments interact with the natural environment around things like slopes. We've heard about earthquakes as well. We've got a clear mandate to help provide knowledge, guidance, and understanding around that. Increasingly regulation associated with around that, not as concrete in the UK, but certainly when we look around the world with the wider IAEG community. And of course then to help ensure that the things that happen within disasters actually don't happen in the future, and how we can actually build resilience and preparedness for those. Of course, we see this diagram time and time again from the Sustainable Development Goals, but there's some great work in a QJGH publication by Lagasse et al., looking at how engineering geology works with the Sustainable Development Goals. And colleagues of Anna published that with the British Geological Survey in 2022, sorry. And in that, it highlights out of all those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, how many we have firm priority to contribute. Do we shout about that as a profession? I'll leave that and pose that as a question. And I really would highlight Richard's publication, Richard and colleagues' publication, as it maps out and highlights those primary Sustainable Development Goals and how engineering geological activities really are needed and the skill set to realise those goals. In 2006, the IAEG Congress, Fred Baines stated that the future of engineering geology also recognises that engineering geologists need to improve how they communicate the value of their contributions to sustainable development. And I do think that that challenge still sits there, and it's something that we certainly don't do with policymakers. I just think this is also, just as a quick one, another lovely diagram from this publication, just as one small highlight, a conceptual ground model. We've heard about the importance of that and the work that was done by Fred Baines and John Perry in developing the guidelines. But we've also got a mandate to be able to show all the interactions we have from this conceptual ground model to changing and contributing to some of those UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then the final one of those UN frameworks is the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Increasingly, climate change, we are being asked to address, mitigate, help to maintain boundaries for coastal lines of defence, maintain the UK landmass of it as an island is always going to be a big challenge. And for us, there's huge and increasing amounts of work just in those activities, as well as trying to see the impact it has on things like the impact of our flood defences in the UK with changing climate, increased rainfall, infrastructure increasingly getting affected. And we've seen that just this year with the heavy rains that we've had and failures once again on our large infrastructure, particularly road and rail. As well as those frameworks, what we see in behind that is increased population growth, natural resource consumption, and physical expansion of our cities. Those key things are driving change and things that we contribute to. That just want to highlight that I think is particularly interesting is, although this report's now a little elderly from the World Economic Forum, cities are growing and expanding at such a rate that globally 60% of the area expanded to be urban by 2030 is yet to be built. And those skills that are needed to help do that are highlighted in the top right-hand corner of the graph. Things around environment, infrastructure, and urban planning, all areas that on the day-to-day engineering geologists work in and contribute to. But of course, one of the things that we do is how do we communicate our information, our advice, our data, our knowledge. And one of the big things that we take for granted when we communicate is our models. Our models are derived from lots of different data sets and have inherent uncertainties associated with them, and sometimes compounding uncertainties to generate them. It's something we struggle with to maintain knowledge of how to translate that to people that are non-technical specialists in our area. And I think it's one of the biggest things we've got to deal with when we move forward. How do we create our everyday models, information pieces, and how do we translate that to planners in cities, flooding planners in local governments, or worst case, actually try to communicate to politicians? What are the tools and things that we need to do to change that? And how do we influence them and show the value of what we do as a profession and the skills we bring to solving those problems? And of course, we've had the burst of information and data in all sorts of forms. But when we create and bring our data and observations from the field together with, say, remote sensing data, we create these lovely, definitive, multicolored models, which when you show somebody that is the answer, there is no uncertainty. But how do we then put those into visualizations and analysis and actually work with that? And as I said before, those uncertainties that come with that and how we communicate. This is an area that I think is going to be something that we need to work on. And it's one of the big topics that I've brought up continuously around this talk. How we communicate our contributions. We very much always work in this natural and built environment, right at the bottom of the triangle of decision making. But hopefully through some of the examples I've talked through and just some of the information, we actually contribute to some of these big international global agendas at the top. That's just the UN SDGs for an example. UK government has to report about how we contribute as the UK to solving those problems. As engineering geologists, we are part of those skill sets which help contribute to that. But how often do we make sure that our voice at the bottom here is heard all the way through up to the top of the decision making? Do our policymakers know and understand what we do? Do they know what engineering geology is and what we bring to the party? And also, do we also highlight those contributions to the next generation to show the value that they're making to society as we go forward? Oh, has it changed? No. So just a quick slide on a few future challenges. There's lots of information about but there's many different ways we have now to present it. And we've got to make sure that we provide it in appropriate and usable formats for geoscientific colleagues, but also the non-geoscience professional. We need to continue and ensure that data and information on the subsurface gets to designers, planners, and decision makers. It's not created and then put in a drawer and then designers use an iteration of it or use some other data sets. We are still hearing about these examples even now. And then how can that information be used to show the value we add to sustainable decision-making, making sure we design things with less concrete, less CO2, and that we contribute to some of those big agendas. So we need to shout out as a profession. We need to highlight what we do. We need to value what we do as a profession and make sure people know about it. Thanks very much. I'll just hand over to Mark now.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, just on a personal note, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the invitation to speak. It's certainly an honour to be asked to speak at such an auspicious event. As was mentioned in the introduction there, I've sort of relatively recently taken over as the chair of the Hydro Group. And it's, it's really kind of positive to be able to start to bring together the different aspects. And it's mentioned in sort of, John's kind of sort of overview earlier on that, he started this sort of bringing together of the different ideas. And I hope, to work closely with Anna and your tenure to sort of build on that. It's a really positive thing, historically, we've sort of been potentially a bit more disparate in how we do our practice. Do feel like a bit of an interloper being a hydrogeologist at another engineering geologist meeting, but, hopefully that'll become less of a rarity in the future. Yeah, I think this sort of collaboration between specialists is going to be really, really critical, across geoscience as a whole, not necessarily just stopping at different aspects of geology, but, and again, it's sort of been mentioned that, even reaching out to the geography community and bringing in people who perhaps there's a bit of sniffiness around in the past because, you're not proper rock people because you just deal with the soil bit. But, it's understanding that actually all of these processes interrelate with each other and hugely influence what we do. And, it's going to be really key to helping us address challenges to society, challenges that society faces adapting to a, sort of physically, politically, meteorologically, commercially changing world. There's a say in the Geological Society, the present is the key to the past, but hopefully the past is also the key to the future, and we can learn from that experience. I know I'm doing a bit of the talk that's looking to the future, but take an opportunity to sort of frame some of that in terms of reflections about, as an introduction, it's 20 years, which is a long time, which is quite scary when you realise how long you've been practicing. Yeah, so that, look back and when I was doing my MSc, I was quite a pretentious individual. I was reading Dante's Inferno as a bit of light relief in the evenings because it took me away from the maths of the hydrogeology MSc. But you know, it's actually looking back now at the middle of my life, it does make me realise that I'm sort of here through a series of very happy accidents and happy coincidences. You know, been fortunate to work with a lot of very sort of influential mentors in hydrogeology, engineering geology. The picture up there of the rig is one that I like to get into every presentation I give, but it was quite a formative period in my early career when I was on site up on the west coast of Scotland, doing some hydraulic testing of the ground. Part of that meant that we couldn't do any pumping tests when it was raining. It was winter. It was the west coast of Scotland. I had a lot of spare time on my hands, and I was, you know, sharing the site with some engineering geologists, and they said, "Oh, some core over here. It's logging. This is how you do it. This is how you do it properly." You know, and it was actually a really positive experience. And then, you know, when we got the pumping test stuff going, they were like, "Oh, fantastic. What does this do? How does that work? What are you doing that for?" So it was a really good kind of learning experience, but I was amazed at how unstructured it all was in a commercial organization who, you know, should be looking to try and get as much value out of their staff as possible. There wasn't really the kind of structured kind of interdisciplinary sort of peer learning, mentor learning there. So it was, yeah, sort of interesting to look back on that and think about how, you know, how sometimes we can sort of drift apart from university onwards because you go down a career path and then you're stuck in a box in an organization, and we sort of lose touch with our, you know, some of the knowledge that we started off with. Again, thank you for the mention of the book. I'll slip you a £5 for the promotion. But yeah, you know, the upcoming publication, it does feel like this book has been launched several times because, I mean, COVID didn't help, if we're honest. There was a great early meeting when COVID had just become a thing on the sort of the radar. And it was just like, oh, brilliant. Well, you know, things will quieten down a bit now. We'll have plenty of time to focus on writing the publication. And that didn't happen. So yeah, there's been a lot of delays on the way, but hopefully it's, you know, we're now at the point where we're doing the final upload to the publishing house. So it's almost over the line. And again, yeah, just like to thank Ian Duncan, Ursula Lawrence, and the members of the working party. There's a lot of effort gone into getting the publication to where it is. And the intention for it is to make it, you know, it's to be a well-thumbed, well-used book. It's not one that sits on the bookcase looking nice. It should be there on the desk being flicked backwards and forwards to help improve communication between hydrogeologists, engineering geologists, and get us sort of speaking more effectively with each other, and breaking down some of those artificial barriers about, you know, using different terminology to describe the same things. So yeah, hopefully it'll hit the mark on that front. In terms of the value of sort of engineering geology and engineering hydrogeology, you know, historically, I spent a lot of my career trying to get a focus on sort of, you know, early steer on potential issues on projects. You know, very, very unusual that you will be brought in at the stage where something is being sited or routes are being selected for linear infrastructure. But it's all about trying to get in as early as possible to help kind of manage the ground risk, de-risk projects, save money, safe program, secure program, all of those sorts of things that clients love to hear. Actually, there's a lot of really good stuff there that we've done across, you know, sort of practitioners of geology, be that engineering or hydrogeology. But also moving forward, as Helen mentioned there, you know, now we're starting to look into sort of integrated design, how to do more effective kind of greener design, carbon savings. You know, don't just throw a load of concrete in the ground to stop the water coming in, because that's hugely carbon intensive. It works, but it comes with other costs and other sort of perhaps historically ignored or hidden costs. And also from a personal point of view, I'm very keen to look at the management of water on big infrastructure schemes, looking for a circular water economy. If you're dewatering an excavation, can you do something with that water? Can you use it for on-site water supply, dust suppression, grey water? Can you extract heat from it and use that as some kind of, you know, part of an overall integrated approach to construction? So I think there's a lot to kind of build on and move forward with. Also, you know, again, it was really interesting to hear the sort of mention in one of the earlier talks as well about the kind of the application and sort of bringing together of international expertise. You know, as we experience more extreme climatic conditions over the coming decades, those, you know, there's some areas that will be at the forefront of this, and they'll be experiencing conditions that haven't been encountered before. So again, the science has to move forward to make sure that we've got more resilient, sustainable solutions to that. And, you know, coming from a UK perspective, we're actually quite fortunate because we can draw on the lived experience and the lived engineering experience of colleagues overseas to help us adapt to conditions that for them are day to day. You know, whereas over here, You know, we're not used to these sort of more extreme downfalls. There was a storm last Tuesday, I think it was, up in West Yorkshire, and it led to, you know, my garden flooded for the first time I've ever seen standing water on there. I'm having a bit of text chat with my parents who live in the village, and my dad was like, "Oh, that's like monsoon rain." You know, that's I'm used to that when I was you know, he grew up overseas, he was in the army. So yeah, it's just like, oh, it's fine. It's just about 20 degrees cooler, but other than that, absolutely no difference. You know, so we can actually, we're very fortunate in this country as practitioners. We've got a lot of international experience to draw on that makes it much easier for us to get to the solutions that we need to. And also we can help then, you know, reciprocally, that grows the kind of input to addressing the more extreme challenges that we face internationally as well. There's a series of challenges up here that I was sort of provided by Vanessa Banks at the BGS, challenges or opportunities, depending on your perspective. But yes, there's, you know, some of these are things that we'll have to address at different timescales in the coming years. You know, some are less immediately applicable, but we need to kind of sort of consider a bit more strategically, perhaps as sort of engineering geologists and hydrogeologists, how we, you know, how we'll address these problems and how we kind of demonstrate our value. And you know, I think that's going to be a really critical part of this, is sort of an internal conversation about how we address the problems technically, but it's no good having the answers if no one's listening to you. So, you know, how do we actually get our voice heard at the table, particularly at the higher levels with sort of strategic government level inputs, but also, you know, looking at the challenges that are faced as we, you know, have emerging technologies coming along. I always thought that geology would be one of the later ones to be kind of automated and put into the AI risk, and, you know, you're out of a job because you need to have judgment when you're doing this. You know, you're dealing with uncertainty. You need to have a proper understanding of how you manage that uncertainty, how you quantify it, how you mitigate it, where you draw the line on that. There's a big movement now to more modular design, more automated design, and the outputs of that from an AI to us look like absolute nonsense. To clients who pay the bills, they get two reports that say broadly the same thing and might have slightly different numbers in. So why am I giving you guys all this money to tell me this? You know, I could get a report like yours for a lot less money. I'll do that, thanks. So we have a real kind of challenge to be able to demonstrate that we do genuinely add value with this, you know, in the role going forward. And kind of communication is going to be absolutely key to that, and demonstrating that we do indeed add value for sort of developing these solutions. The other slight challenge we've got is, you know, it sort of indicated a bit in some of the membership numbers for the IAEG there, and it's across the board. I think there's probably not many people who aren't aware of the challenges facing the geosciences at university level at the moment, and how we actually get people coming into the industry. And, you know, it seems slightly odd standing in the Geological Society saying, you know, people don't understand how great geology is and how great geoscience is. But, you know, we do have a sort of a perception issue with the public at large. I know from developing the Level 6 Geoscience Apprenticeship Standard, there's a lot of negative perceptions around geology. We're seen as part of the problem, part of the old, you know, the old world. We're extracting minerals, we're taking out oil and gas. It's all, you know, we're part of the problem, not the solution. So it's, you know, we've got a potential sort of reputational challenge to face. We've got clients who are looking to make savings and turning to automated solutions. So yeah, we just need to make sure that we're not kind of inadvertently overlooked and then setting back where we need to be before people actually realize that there is a problem that they should be listening to the experts to address. But also we need to sort of consider how we're going to make sure that we bridge that gap as well, you know, to be able to demonstrate that. There's the immediate problem of falling numbers of people coming out of university or higher education into the industry. You know, it's how we kind of overcome that in the short term and actually build a sort of strong, resilient sort of reputation as geoscience practitioners to be able to sort of make sure that we can continue to add the value and hopefully get some of the recognition that we're not great at eliciting from the public at large at the moment. Yeah, so, you know, I'd just like to say a sort of closing reflection on that is, you know, as I said, I'm here as a series of happy coincidences. You know, I have no doubt that there are many, many more people out there that would have been much better hydrogeologists than I am, would never have considered a career in the sector. You you know, or maybe they did and they couldn't get into it because they couldn't go to university. So yeah, I think, you know, we just need to consider as we look to the future, how we work to make what I've found an incredibly rewarding career accessible to a wider range of people. I'd like to think that you know, the science and the profession can only benefit if we can achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Helen, and to extend our thanks also to the previous speakers, Jim and Vassilios. At this point in time, we don't have any open questions online, but thanks, Jim. Looks like we have a contender for our first question in the room.
I've got an observation, but I was just offering up to hold the mic. Is this on? Yeah. So I've spent the last 2 years as John Davis from GCG. I've spent the last 2 years as chair of the engineering group, and for maybe a good chunk of the last 5 years or so, most of my work activity has been around disputes and things that go wrong, forensic, all the rest, that kind of thing. And I'm quite gloomy. This is a UK perspective, and it's not a question, but you know, comments, please come back with observations. I'm quite gloomy about engineering geology in the sort of medium term, the next decade or so in this country, because Jim alluded to this earlier on. We've in the last few weeks, 2 MSc courses have been suspended, and others are struggling. And the reason for that is not merely, as you might imagine, that these are expensive courses to run and universities don't want to pay for them. It's nobody's applying to go on them. Okay, nobody's applying to go on them. And the dispute or the forensic part is what I'm most gloomy about, is that I think our engineering geology community in the broader sense in this country is slowly de-skilling. So all the points Helen and Mark are making about models, AI and uncertainty, people are not good at this. And they make such obvious and stupid mistakes, which is good for me, but it's not right. And I've got no idea how we fix this. How do we get people? Not only we've got hardly any geoscience people going into geology degrees or earth science degrees, when they come out, they don't want to come and join us. And I'm quite pessimistic, sorry. So any thoughts on that, anybody? Because yeah, it's not great. I'm biased in the sense that I deal with a lot of other people's problems. So, and it's not like that everywhere, I know, but anyway, okay, that's my mo.
Hello, Anna Morley from Arup. So in response to John, I've spent today and yesterday hosting a work experience student who is post GCSEs. He's 16, so chosen his A-levels in the sciences. Many schools obviously don't have A-level geology, do they? So that's kind of one problem, yeah. But I think getting, you know, once you've got I think follow your passion and then go. If you get into an undergraduate science geology degree, I think that's the target audience for us. Get the undergraduates interested in the kind of master's courses that we want to employ people from. I've got nods here. What do you guys all think? From some younger people. Okay.
Is that working? Yeah, sounds it. Jacob Bennett, Mont MacDonald, and also ex-treasurer, so I can say that now. I'd just like to respond that me and Josh last year went to the Geoscience Careers Fair held here, and I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of people that were really quite interested in engineering geology, but also quite shocked how many didn't know much about it. I don't think it's pushed enough at undergraduate level, given that it's probably the primary employer of geologists in this country now that oil and gas and minerals are sort of stepping away. So I would second the fact that the target needs to be undergraduate level. I think is it falling off at undergraduate level as well, or is it just postgraduate?
I think Jim has got something to say on this one.
Yeah, can I just say, in response to the previous question, it is falling off at undergraduate level as well, as a subject. So we do have a problem. What I would say though is that the JOSOC is trying really hard to actually hit the area which I think is most important, which is the schools level. You know, the interest of dinosaurs and volcanoes is obviously part and parcel of it. But we do need to attract students prior to getting to university. Our problem when we get to university, and I'm with John on this, I'm a bit pessimistic as well, having taught at university for 20 years. The number of people who can teach undergraduates who've actually experienced being an engineering geologist, so sort of, they're few and far between, because you don't get people from industry going into academia anymore. And that to me is really remains one of the big gaps. You know, you want to enthuse people in the world of engineering geology, you've got to be able to tell them just how great it really is. You've got to have done it. You can't teach it as a theory. It's something which is hands-on and in practice. So when I left sort of the teaching side at Plymouth, they replaced me with a geohazard expert. Fast, brilliant bloke, but never actually done any engineering geology. So yeah, I'm a bit pessimistic, but I still think the JOSOC is now starting to put together a really good program that's approaching schools, because that's how we're going to get people in. Get them into geology and then try and get somebody to teach them some engineering geology. That's my hope anyway.
Hello, Luke Johnstone, Atkins Realis. More of a personal reflection. I didn't think I was going to be a geologist. I thought I was going to be an engineer. And then I did an elective, and I absolutely loved geology. So it's not necessarily saying, wow, geology is amazing, but dispersing geology into all the other subjects. Some of the best geologists or geotechnical engineers I've ever worked with never thought they'd be geologists and came from different backgrounds, mid-career or early careers, wherever it may be. They're attracted into the discipline and brought skills with them. So I think that's just another important thing to think about and pathway into the discipline.
I also think quite a lot of people fall into this profession rather than necessarily choose it, and I include myself in that. That when I did geology at undergraduate level, I'm just going back to it again, I didn't know about engineering geology before I got to this point, and thankfully I did fall into it, but I think there's quite a lot of people, and I suspect there's people in this room that are probably the same as well, actually, that are in that position.
Yeah, Rodney Charteris, amongst other things, former chairman of Ground Forum and of the engineering group, had a career in both the private sector and within the civil service. No, I didn't fall into the career. At the age of about 3, I lived in my sandpit, knew just what I wanted to do, and that was build dams, reservoirs, bridges, and muck about with knocking the out of them and seeing why. But anyway, that as a side, yes, I must admit, I do agree with the pessimism. I fear it's always been thus, but it's slightly different now, in as much as I think we're losing sight as a profession of being there influencing government through politicians. I mean, I think the links we have with the Parliamentary and Scientific Society are absolutely vital, and to get directly to politicians so that they know who to go to, and after the meetings and the dinners and what have you, you can actually sidle up and tell them home truths, and that actually gets to the top and gets to where you want to get to. It's in this wonderful transparent age, I'm afraid the personal touch is king for actually making things happen. And again, I'd ask a question of, I'm not certain now, because I'm too much out of touch as a 75-year-old, as to what is going on within the civil service as having engineering geologists or people with geological knowledge actually working in departments. That is absolutely vital. I don't know where we can rattle some cages there and persuade mid-career geologists and engineering geologists to apply for jobs in the relevant departments, because then you really can start steering things and making things happen. And the other thing I really don't understand is, if you look at the IAEG circulations and publications and the newsletter, which I think is absolutely amazing, every week there are more and more and more geohazard disasters around the world. I think talking to grandchildren, as one does, they're all terribly enthusiastic about mudslides and volcanic disasters, and it's trying to enthuse that to actually move over and take it seriously within schools as a career. And I think that's an area where probably a lot of work could be done, because you talk to them about, in my case, obviously my career, and they just sit there in awe and amazement. It's absolutely fantastic. Wow, you did what? You did this, you did, oh God, and to travel the world and do it on someone else's budget is really quite a nice thing to do. But no, I mean, I think it's very exciting. There's lots of opportunities out there, but there must be an awful lot of little people who are passionate, goes in their blood like I was, who need to be teased out and make it clear that there is a career path there, and you really can make it happen. So I hope some food for thought there. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Jason Manning from Arup. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the speakers, especially Jim and Vassilios, for a very good background to the huge achievements. Communication and education is key. I think one of the challenges, and it's becoming a global problem, all this polarization and people we're politically, socially, we're all being sort of algorithmized, getting folk more grouped into whatever interests you were. So with the IAEG, and it's the same with other groups, it's sort of preaching to the converted. Or the danger is that you become very good at that, but it's really the challenge. I see it as how to communicate outside and to bring in other people, and then that's how we really get impact. So if you reach out and get other people involved, and one of the ways to do that is to have, when you have sort of key conferences, you get a keynote speaker, perhaps from another area, whether it's from the UN or something of power, or from the government, because then they like being asked to come in, but then they also, it goes out. They will go back and say, oh, there's this group. So that helps to spread the knowledge as well. So I think education and communication from school level, but actually then up to how you can influence in society, and government. But yeah, Jim, Vassilios, and the others, thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting evening and presentations.
I think perhaps one more, Anna, and then I think we might have to close it out there. Thank you. Whoa. Go on, John, then, just because it's the end of your tenure.
So Anna Morley from Arup. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Jason. I was going to sort of ask Helen the same question, really. As an example, we have some projects in Bhutan which are architect-led. So I'm not disrespecting any architects in the room or on the call, of course. But essentially the vision that's sold to the client are these, massive structures, beautiful sort of presentations with prayer flags and things like that, but no mention of earthquakes, floods, landslides in Bhutan. And then you come along and you're the bad news person. So I guess my question is, in terms of communicating to non-specialists, how do we do that without being bad news and cost?
It's turning the bad news into the opportunity, and that's it's the nuance of the language and the communication. And none of us are taught to do that. It's something I've learned by being put on the spot in usually in international projects, actually, of knowing how to sort of do the political spin. And it's a skill, as a profession, we do need actually more time and time again to show the value of those skills we bring and those opportunities. Or a bit of a Jacobsism, the value that we add to saving costs or lives, or, the amount of country, more resilience as well. So it's those new skills as well as our traditional skills that we need to bring together. And that's what I think are some of the challenges we have. But the influence bit of showing the value that we bring to those opportunities and influence as high as we can in project teams, with architects or project managers, but also then on the bigger programs and schemes with, you know, local government officials, government ministers, etc. It's a big challenge for our profession.
Thanks, Helen. John Davis again. I'm going to wrap this up by putting some of Rodney's comments just now in context. We go back a long way, Rodney, don't we? So so Rodney was one of my engineering geology bosses when I was a civil servant 40 years ago. Anyway, I think you're right. There's nobody like us in government anymore, and the people that were like us back in the 1980s were people like you, and now those people just do not exist. But they do exist in increasingly small numbers in typically privately owned infrastructure companies. So we don't have a voice. You're absolutely right. Maybe we need to wake that up with a ground forum. We've got a ground forum meeting in 2 weeks, which I'm going to. So I'm going to bring a lot of this stuff up. So thank you all for your comments. Do you want me to wrap this up? Because the next thing to say is some of us will be going to the pub. Thank you.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, okay. Well, do you want to, you're convening one. Well, go.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, John's taken the words out of my mouth. I think it's time to wrap up here and let everyone go home. And we will be migrating to local watering hole. So that's a plug for anyone that wants to join in person next time. It's the usual tradition to wrap these things up. Once again, thanks to all our speakers this evening, and a round of applause.
It's the name of the pub. Across the road.